We're continuing our look at long-term athlete development as explained by the official position statement from the National Strength and Conditioning Association. And this chat is going to look at pillars number 3 and 4 from that document. Pillar number 3 talks about the fact that LTAD is inclusive, all youth. So even though we're speaking and using terminology related to athletes, this statement, this professional position statement, our role as movement educators, even if we may not be working with every single youth, like perhaps in a PE teaching setting, we have the professional obligation to understand that all youth should have access to this. They should be encouraged to enhance their fitness from early childhood. And this concept of enhancing fitness should have a dual focus on motor skill development and strength development at a concurrent time. So in Pillar 3, there should be three main foci of early training and movement experiences. The first one talks about a movement vocabulary, and this is making sure that our young movers have a very robust and also proficient profile and the things they can do. That means it's not just proficient at one or two things or just proficient at throwing or softball pitching. It's a variety of things. And the second foci for especially our early movers is fundamental motor skills and movement concepts. There's 3 categories of those. Locomotor movements, those are traveling movements. Manipulative, that means we're controlling some sort of object. And then non-locomotor, stabilizing movements. And so these are movements that may not necessarily involve traveling or moving of the feet or the body across distance, but it's related to object control or manipulative movements as well as locomotor. Also, this third main foci, as I mentioned earlier, is complementing fundamental motor skills with strength development. And so we have to remember strength is actually a major determinant of an individual's performance in their fundamental motor skills. If someone doesn't have requisite strength to be able to catch a ball, change direction, and transition into a run, to do that simple combination or string together of a motor skill and a movement concept and a manipulative movement, they're going to struggle with being able to perform it proficiently. Next, we need to remember that fundamental motor skills are multi-muscle. They are multi-joint and multi-plane movements. Muscle strength, as I mentioned, is complementary to fundamental motor skills. That ability to produce enough force to propel the body into a skip or into a run or into change of direction is essential. And we know that youth is an ideal time to work on both motor skill development and muscular strength in that complementary type of aspect, because we know at this stage youth have a heightened ability, or heightened degree, I should say, of neuroplasticity in their motor pathways. And so they're evolving and also strengthening their synapses. And so this is a crucial stage in these early youth ages. And so that's why we'll see in physical education at the elementary levels and even in grade level outcomes for physical education, the majority of those outcomes and in a really quality physical education curriculum is going to be motor skill development, body weight strength, functional movements. We also know that one of our primary goals of LTAD for especially our young individuals, our young movers, is we want our kids to be resilient. So not just physically resilient, but also mentally too. We want them to be physically strong and technically proficient. And so we want to make sure that our movers, they can maintain their competency and their motor skill performance across any demand of movement, athletic, sporting, recreational activity. That's really our ideal. And so we think of, say, a young mover, a young teen or preteen, and the ideal is that they can catch, they can throw, in playing a recreational game, maybe it's ultimate frisbee, and then they can go to maybe to a sport practice, and then they can still employ catching and throwing, and now maybe they're doing a lot more change of direction of movement successfully in that setting. And then maybe they're going to another season of the year, they're going to hockey practice, and they're able to employ those same motor skills on the ice in this different setting. And then maybe they're also able to do this just jumping around. Maybe they're on a playground, they're climbing, on a family vacation, they're able to still maintain a level of competency that transfers across motor skills and across different environments. We also have a major focus that our pillar number 3 supports. So motor skill development along with muscular strength development, this supports risk reduction for injury. And so when we have strength-oriented conditioning with fundamental motor skills concurrently, we're creating really positive movement patterns in this key neurodevelopment stage. And then these technically sound movement patterns, that's the key thing. We want them to be proficient, so technically sound. We want those to be repeated and incorporated regularly so they continue to develop these technically sound patterns when they do have repeated environments or varied environments. We know that physical literacy, which is one of our goals of LTAD, one of the goals of physical education, and just in general in movement, it's this ability to move with confidence and competence. And we see, again, wide variety of activities that comes back over and over again, multiple environments, and ultimately our professional goal, even if we're a specific sport coach, we want to develop the whole person. To me, that's one of our ethical goals of being a coach or a teacher or a trainer. Another definition that complements the first one of physical literacy is that physical literacy, this is a disposition that really encompasses our own motivation, our confidence, and also that physical competence. So that's technical proficiency, so that we can make physical activity purposeful and an integral part of our life. So that means we are on purpose choosing to be active because it's important to us. We like it. We have confidence. We have the competency, and we want to do it regularly. We know all of these things will also contribute to long-term health. So, big question that we see is, what age do we start? And there's really no single chronological age, as we saw in the first 2 pillars. I talked about that. There's not necessarily a linear exact age or stage, but we see these general milestones. And so we know that birth and on, we want to see exploratory play and deliberate play. So deliberate play could mean intentional play. Maybe that is guided, or maybe in a semi-structured or structured setting. We want from birth on to have fundamental motor skills and strength foundations. And so we see particular activities like gymnastics, martial arts are really good at this. Even dance to some extent, or dance to a great extent, incorporates body weight activities. So it means that they are able to manage themselves in space, develop space awareness, managing how their body moves in space. And so when we get to other stages of maturity, this is where we can then assess with the kids that we're working with or the movers, are they physically mature enough? And then the big one is emotional maturity, to be able to have be able to function in a semi-structured or structured setting. So the big thing really is, it's not a certain age to start kids at. It's, can they follow directions? Can they accept direction? Can they accept feedback? And are they emotionally mature to do that in this structured or semi-structured setting? And then also, just in general, do they have a competent level of just postural support, body weight management? So that just means managing their body in space. If they have these 2 things, that's a good sign to indicate, yeah, they could be ready at that point for a more structured experience, as long as we're incorporating still exploratory play. And so a big thing at the bottom, when we see a lot of critiques of strength and conditioning, that muscle strength development at young ages, the question I always ask is, well, if they're young enough, if you think they're young enough, say 3, 4 years old, if you're saying that's young enough for structured sport, or if that's young enough for little league or for little youth soccer, then they're also developmentally ready for long-term athlete development-oriented strength and conditioning. And that doesn't mean they're hitting the weights necessarily in the weight room, or that they're training like an adult. That just means their bodies are ready. They're incorporating that much specific motor skill training in a certain sport-based area. Their bodies also need to be experiencing muscle strength training alongside of that.